All right, hi everyone. We're going to review some cell organelles and their functions with my friend Selbert. All right, Selbert is a complex kind of guy. He's a eukaryote cell, and that means that he is filled with organelles. All right, and those organelles are literally means little organs, and each of these organelles has a specialized function that helps this beautiful complex eukaryote cell to survive, right? So each one's got its own function. So let's take a peek and let's start here at the center. All right, one thing that makes a eukaryote special from a prokaryote is it has this lovely nuclear envelope, and inside it we've got the nucleus. So we have the nucleus, the center of the cell, right? It's different than a prokaryote because all of the genetic material inside is surrounded in this nucleus. Now, let's take a deeper peek inside this nucleus. So inside this nucleus, we have our DNA. We have our genetic material, which is the instruction manual for the entire cell. Now, inside, along with that instruction manual, is a little smaller organelle with a slightly different set of information, right? So we've got this guy right here, and he's the nucleolus. Now, his job is to produce ribosomes, and he also has a different type of genetic material called RNA. And that RNA is what the ribosomes are going to use to make proteins. So again, we've got our nucleus, right? Inside our nucleus, we've got our DNA, which is the instructions for the cell, our nucleolus, which produces ribosomes and carries RNA, which has the instructions for making proteins in the ribosomes. Now let's look outside the cell and see what else we can find here. Let's talk about the next structure that's right attached to the nuclear envelope, which means the container for the nucleus. And we have this structure right here. Okay, and the structure actually comes in two forms. This first structure is very smooth, and the second part of the structure is what we call rough. This is the endoplasmic reticulum. Now, endoplasmic reticulum sounds like a really big word, but it's not. Endo means in, and of course, plasma would be the cytoplasm. So endoplasmic just means inside the cytoplasm. Pretty easy, right? Reticulum is referring to its shape. It's shaped like a maze. It twists and turns back on itself. Okay, we might say like a snake. We might say like there's something like articulated snake. It means a snake that twists and turns. So reticulum means the organelle that has a swervy maze-like shape. So endoplasmic reticulum means a reticulated or a swervy organelle inside the cytoplasm, right? Not a very hard thing now that we know what that word means. Two types of endoplasmic reticulum. The first one we have is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The job of this reticulum is to produce lipids. Lipids are fats, waxes, and oils, but in our cells, it produces the lipids that are used to produce the cell membrane and to produce things like our vesicles and our other membranes that surround our other organelles. The rough endoplasmic reticulum also has a job to produce and transport, and it is covered in ribosomes, right? It is covered in ribosomes, and of course, ribosomes are producing proteins. All right, it's a highway too, so it also moves things around. Let's move to a different one. So off of the endoplasmic reticulum, let's go ahead and talk about another major structure that has another job of moving things and transporting things around, and that's the structure out here, okay? The structure out here is the Golgi body, or Golgi apparatus, or Golgi complex. We're going to call it the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus has a job of packaging up materials that need to go in and out of the cell. So it packages materials coming in, and it packages materials getting ready to go out. Okay, it's very much like a shipping factory. Off of the Golgi apparatus, we're going to talk about two more organelles. The first one we have are vesicles. All right, vesicles are like shipping boxes, shipping containers. Two things happen with vesicles. Either vesicles gather materials outside the cell and bring them into the cell to be processed, or the Golgi body uses the vesicles to package up materials that need to leave the cell. So you can see how we have a vesicle leaving right here. The other organelle that we have related directly to the Golgi body is this guy over here, right? So we have our lysosomes. The job of the lysosome is to break down materials for the cell to use. That's one of its jobs. So one job of the lysosome is to take incoming food molecules from the vesicles that are coming in and break it down so that the cell can use it. The mitochondria can use it for energy. So lysosomes break down food. The other thing they do is they break down the waste products from the different organelles in the cell, and they break it down and again work with the Golgi body to send it out from the cell. Another organelle that we can take a look at here in Cellbert. Cellbert has these big structures here, and inside they kind of look wavy, but they're contained inside these round shapes, and these are the mitochondria. Okay, this is a mitochondrion, and two or more we call the mitochondria. And the mitochondria we can think of, it produces the mighty energy, all right? The job of the mitochondria is to take the food particles, the nutrient particles that have come in to the cell and produce energy for the cell, cellular energy. This process is called cellular respiration, and that happens here in the mitochondria. That's where energy is produced. Now, let's look at these little dots right here. These little dots should look similar to the dots on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and that's because, well, they are. These are the ribosomes, okay? And the ribosomes, while they're very, very small, they have a very, very important job. Their job is to produce the proteins for the cell. And the reason that that is so important is that proteins are the structures of the cell, right? Proteins are the building block of the cellular structures. So ribosomes use the RNA from the nucleolus as the instruction manual for producing the proteins throughout the cell. Now, what are some organelles that are missing that Cellbert does not have? Because unfortunately, Cellbert is not complete. He doesn't have the things that some other cells have. What is he missing? Well, because he's a eukaryotic animal cell, he does not have a cell wall. Cell walls are produced from cellulose, which is fiber, and their job is to provide structure and stability for the cell. Animal eukaryotic cells do not have that. Cellbert also does not have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are little green structures. I think of them as little green jelly beans, but sometimes they're round as well, inside of plant cells and algae and some other organisms. And their job is to take sunlight and produce food particles for the cell. Animal cells don't do that. They have to get their food energy from elsewhere and is brought into the cell through vesicles. Now, what if an animal cell wants to store something for later? It wants to has some extra food nutrients, wants to store something. Well, it's going to need to store them right here in the vacuoles. Vacuoles are just storage containers. They're just holding areas for materials that the cell might want to have. So extra food, maybe some other particles, maybe some enzymes that are waiting to be used are going to be hanging out here in the vacuoles. This last one here that kind of looks like a Twizzler, these are the centrioles. Now, in animal cells, the centrioles have a job, and their job is to help the cell divide. When the cell has gotten large enough, it starts the process of cell division. The centrioles will go into action. They will move to the ends of the cell. They will send out fibers to connect to the DNA, and they will start to pull the cell apart. That process is called mitosis, and we're going to be learning all about that later. But centrioles, their job is to help the cell during cell division. So, thank you, Cellbert, for helping me explain all about cell organelles.